Welcome back to a Niger Man's Perspective. I have a special guest with me in the house today, Toks Melo. Toks, long time.
Nice one, bro.
How you doing?
Good to see you again. Yeah.
Excellent. So today we're going to be talking Nigeria, particularly about our democracy and how we are faring with democracy. We've had a few stints at democracy, but the latest stint we had was from 1999, what some people call the fourth. Is it the fourth democracy or the fourth republic?
Fourth Republic.
Yeah, so some people call it the fourth republic. So, Toks, what can you tell us a little bit about your background and how it relates to Nigeria's democracy or your passion for Nigeria's democracy?
Right. My passion, really, background. I'm a student of history. I love the fact that there's nothing new. There's so many. The histories. If you don't know where you're, like the Yoruba would say, if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going.
Yes.
So the critical, the essence of being, or the essence of the nation, is to know your history. It might help you to navigate where you're going to. So I'll take it from there. So then you talk about democracy. I think we need to strip it back a little bit beyond what is democracy. In the real sense, or in the sense of Abraham Lincoln, democracy or democratic government is of the people, government of the people, by the people, for the people. So looking at it in that context, I'll say what we seem to call democracy in the Nigerian context, I think is an illusion.
You think it's an illusion?
I think so. I think it's an illusion in the sense, and I say respectfully, not to cast disparity on our people, but it's an illusion because are we actually practicing real democracy? Whether it's the Fourth Republic, I can talk more of the Fourth Republic because I've only been in this, I'm old enough to understand the dynamics of it. The rest of history, but history doesn't lie. Even from the other previous democratic attempt that we so-called had, it was still an illusion because this is being ruled by this so-called elite. And I will come to that later, but I don't want to jump the gun, but I just want to unpack what we mean by the word democracy. Of the people, so people, our representative is meant to come from within us, right?
Yes.
Okay. By the people, meaning that we, or the people, elect their representative to represent them in government.
A consensus?
A consensus.
Right.
So that consensus, I think there's a fault line. There's a fault line in the way Nigeria democracy system works. Yes, we are a multi-party system, tick. We are not seen as a autocrat, question mark. Single party system, I believe so.
Even though we have two or more parties?
Well, when two or more parties engage and the only one party trumps and everybody else seems to maybe move across to the other party, there's only one system. Yes, we may not have it the China way, but we have a system that means is a state capture and one person, winner takes all. Whether he's, without mentioning any names, whatever party is as a central, most of the other parties, they come to the party. So there is no concept of representative of the people because the people that put you there, put you in the party A, but suddenly you're in party B, with an election, with the mandate of the people. So what does that translate to? So I think I'm probably jumping around a little bit, but I think to take this back for me personally, when I call it illusion, because it's really, I want to unpack that illusion that we call democracy in Nigeria or in any part of the world, even be it America. This is money politics. This is where money is involved, where we're trying to raise funds for a political party in order to get to the center, to have the power. Then there's always going to be what I call power to the highest bidder. When I say that, there are 4 pillars of democracy, or to any democratic system.
Okay.
So the first pillar is legislator. You and I have been around long enough to see or to know, how does legislature, how has it worked for us or Nigerian populace? How has it worked? You never elected your legislators. They're selected, whether through the party system. The party that gives you those legislators a selective process. That process is not free and fair. The second pillar of this legislator is the executive. The executive is even more compounded, because whether it becomes a 2-leg race or race, the system that gives you a PDP frontrunner or APC frontrunner or any kind of frontrunner is being decided by the delegates. The delegate does not involve you or I or any other common man. So that is not of the people, by the people, because the system that tells you, here is the best people, 2 people, APC, PDP, you got 2 of the best bunch or bad bunch, whatever you want to call it, and you're left with that choice. Was that really a choice? Was that your representative? So this is why I say strongly that the executive arm of government, whether it's the state government or the central, the system that brings forth those is faulty. The third pillar that I refer to as one of the strong pillars is the judiciary.
Judiciary. Okay.
Judiciary in the system, and as a student of history, has failed democracy in a big time. You do not win an election and decided upon by the judiciary. Judiciary is in the hands or pocket of the executives. So you can see straight away you're living an illusion of democracy, because the judiciary becomes the umpire. Whoever they say wins on the day, not the voters, decide wins. So there's a mirage going on. And lastly,
the fourth one.
The fourth one for me is the media. So if every single one of those pillars did what they were supposed to do, then you can talk to me about democracy. The media is the fault line completely. The media is in the hands of the other 3 pillars. So
you believe the media is being used as a tool?
The media
instead of being a separate and
rather than being the pillar that monitors, that holds people to account and show us what is really true. But a lot of our people, or executive, or the big mannerism, the oligarchies in the Nigerian state, own a media company. So the spin or whatever you hear is exactly where they want you to play, or where they want you to fall in line. So these are my very strong point when I said democracy in Nigeria, or in any country for that matter, but focusing on Nigeria, it's an illusion.
Thank you very much. So if you're joining this channel or this video for the first time, please subscribe and like, but let's get back to it. So, you said a lot of things there. You honed on so many different themes. You talked about the 4 pillars. You talked about you will get to the 4th Republic. Yeah. Now, I want to understand, or from my understanding of history, we didn't always have democracy. So before going into why it's an illusion, can you briefly tell us or explain what happened in Nigeria? And now I know that Nigeria wasn't always Nigeria. Nigeria was a name given to the country for the region of the peoples that inhabited that area or that part of Africa. And I know it's a loaded question, but I think it will help the listeners to understand what was happening before, what changed, and then we can now do a deep dive into why it's an illusion, and perhaps what you would consider to be maybe some takeaways for how things should be. So we're going to talk about how things are, and we're going to talk about how things were before things changed to democracy. So over to you.
Wow. So pre-democracy, our forefathers existed before this imported democracy, or whatever we call democratic government. We've always been a democratic community. Africans, Nigerians, or from my culture, Yoruba culture, we were probably one of the very elite people that had their own system of government. We might have never called it a name. Perhaps they did. But the point is, we had a system of government that suited our way of life, our way of being. What is government? What is democracy? It's about the dividend of having tolerances, ensuring that there's parity and equity in how we live and abide by certain rules. We had all of those before we had this so-called amalgamation of the country, different tribes being bonded together
against their will.
We had those. So Yoruba culture, we have our compound. You had your immediate, your nuclear family. Then you have your extended family. Within that, you have what we call the compound. They call it, what's the Yoruba word that escapes me now? Is your compound name, your compound family. There is a leader. There's a patriarch. There's a patriarch system. Not always men. Surprise, surprise. But there's a patriarch system. There's also a system outside of that, which is outside your compound, which is led by the elders. And outside of that, you have the village elders, the village leaders, the baales, then to the crown kings. And you had the empire, like the old Oyo Empire or all the other Yoruba empires. These had functions. Oyo-Ile. All of these had the chiefs. They have the Oyomeses. These are the kingmakers. So there were processes, there's balances and checks. So the executive arm of government that we so-called had was the crown king, but he wasn't a dictator. He wasn't allowed to be a dictatorship because he has the chiefs to check and to have the checks on the king.
So he would have to carry them along.
He has to carry them along. So what we have about the parliamentary style of legislative, the House of Rep and House of Senate, is no new thing. It was just a different packaging. But we had it quite functional within our heritage, within our community, that I believe historically worked, and they were quite successful. The Oyo Empire, it was very successful. It was not only successful in terms of the growth and financial power, it was successful also in the military field. So the military government did not exist. They were warriors. They worked for the king. They were soldiers. So a number of things that worked together, even when we had the wings of war, the soldiers or the warriors were allowed to own slaves or whatever it was. But things worked for the society, the community, quite well. Unfortunately, we had what you would call the period, the Dark Ages, where we were being ruled by or governed by the British. So a lot of those things changed, and what we had now, 1960 onwards was
bringing it back to
the modern days, or what we call where the history supposedly started from Nigerians, but we existed before Nigeria came into being, is what was being handed down as democracy. 1960, we got independent. 63, we had elected. 1960, we had an elected leader, or was he elected? Dr. Nnamdi
as president.
And
Tafawa Balewa
as the prime minister. But then that was short-lived. Eventually, 1966 major coup by Major Kaduna Uzegu. So these key junction in the history, how we went from the illusion of the democratic system into another system, which was the beginning of the military era. once the military takes the power. Remember what I said about in the days before colonization, we had our warriors. They did one thing. There was only one function, which is you go and fight and protect the land.
Yes. And defend from
And
external
defend
attacks.
external attacks.
Yes.
But suddenly, the military decided they want a taste of power. And I think that created a different illusion, a different problem. And when you look back at our history, it's just been the same thing. When I say this leads me to our oligarchs, the oligarchies, they're ruling the military elites and the wealthy elites amongst us. And it's been the same since 1966, even to the so-called Fourth Republic. I say that in a manner of what I've seen played out. Since 1999, we can categorically hand on, if we start counting it from Obasanjo, Obasanjo became president straight out, whatever the circumstances were.
Yes.
Or let's start from how he was handed power by Abdul Salami. Obasanjo took power first, the democratic government. He handed over to the late Musa Yar'Adua.
Yes.
You said Shehu Yar'Adua,
Yes.
not the general, but his
brother, Musa
Yar'Adua.
Yeah. Of blessed memory.
Of blessed memory.
Yeah.
And the one person by accident, I believe, was Goodluck Jonathan, based on what happened around the sudden death of Yar'Adua.
Correct.
Right? That was probably not by default, was just by accident that hand of God played out. And you still call that democracy, even how we got to that power. Goodluck, single term president. We're back to the oligarchs again in Buhari. Buhari is one of the oligarchs. What is an oligarch? We use the word oligarchs in the real sense.
I was going to ask you, what is an oligarch?
The oligarch is not just a term that we've gotten accustomed to with the Russians. Oligarch simply means the military elite and the rich elite who control the resource and how people govern. It's a carcass of those powerful people. The few elite. It's an elitist group, but they're very efficient. I said they're very efficient. I've just been naming how Baba Obasanjo got there. He was a selection. It was by selection. Whatever election did to, but I can't remember how things panned out then, but it's a selection.
You talked about in 1999.
1999.
Okay.
There you go, Yar'Adua. Yes, he was probably another selection arrangement by Obasanjo that brought Yar'Adua in after his failed third term agenda. Then we had the incident of Goodluck Jonathan. Then you have Buhari, who thinks was his rightful place to be Nigerian's president again. 8 years, 2 terms president. And now we have another oligarch, and I'm not saying a military oligarch, but we now have Baba Tinubu again, now, who is a very powerful man. Might not be in the military carcass, but he is within his own right. They're all the same oligarchs. So we haven't had a true democracy. You might have an illusion of election. So when I mentioned those 4 pillars, now put those 4 pillars into the election, the last election we had, or Nigerian had, it played itself out very well. The selection process of the PDPs and the APC, the election that brought Emilio in, the primary elections, was that a selection? Or was that truly democratic process? So when I say that with a sense of purpose and duty to say, wake up. People are not self-organized enough. We are not self-organized enough because you allow a system to play out. And every 4 years, you're back to the same, oh, it's a democratic government, we go to the polls. And the result of the polls is not exactly what really happens. Free and fair election, has it ever been free? Has it been fair? Do we have the right people in place? I'll never challenge any elected government, but what we're saying is the process that brings this two-horse-leg race for us, the one that brought us, well, it was three-legged horse race this time. You had Peter Obi, you had Tinubu, and you had Atiku.
Correct.
Right. Each of those primaries made no sense.